So my name is Emily Golightly, and I am a K-5 librarian at Newport Elementary School in Eastern North Carolina. And I just do want to take a moment for us to kind of figure out who's in the room, because it's always weird in these Zoom sessions to kind of build rapport and figure out who you're talking to. So if you guys would like to introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful. You can either speak up or just share in the chat is fine. I'm still admitting other friends too. So I see Lindsay is in New Jersey High School. Awesome. I see pre-K through 5 in Virginia from Margot. Trisha in her LMS program in Connecticut. I also see high school in South Florida. Ooh, South Florida, nice. It's probably hotter there than it is here. I will say it's been, we've had that hurricane moving through in North Carolina, and it has been crazy weather the last couple of days. Very windy for this time of year. Ooh, more Connecticut, New York. Oh, lots of different places. That's awesome. And I like that there's a good variety of age levels, because you really can do this with any age group. Some more middle school, Long Island, Delaware finally stopped raining. I know we had some nasty rain last night. We tried to zip out. We went and saw Wakanda Forever last night. And thank goodness we were traveling right in between rain bands, so we didn't get soaked. But yeah, it's been crazy here too. So like I said, this is really informal. I encourage cameras on if you're comfortable, if you're in your pajamas, no stress. But so this really is not just me talking, but a chance for you guys to share about your questions and expertise too. So you're welcome to unmute and ask questions, or share what brought you to this session today, so that we can kind of know what you might be looking for. I have been in the elementary realm for the last 19 years, and I will say I've used First Chapter Fridays in the librarian role specifically, even though I started off elementary and then was a reading specialist and ESL teacher. But I really like the First Chapter Fridays because it's a good way to get kids excited about books they may not have found out about otherwise. So for me in the library, what I do is I post a video every Friday reading the first chapter. And within that, I kind of start with a little information about the author and the book. And then I usually show a book trailer from YouTube, because now, especially more current books, it's easy to find a book trailer from the publisher. And then I will literally just read the first chapter, really super simple, share why I'm excited about it, share if they are an author of multiple books, or if they have a series, which is always what I would recommend, is using ones where you have multiple books from that author. So when one kid comes in and checks out the one that you just shared, there's plenty more for them to grab. And so that's just a way for them to kind of find books that they may not have otherwise noticed on the shelves. I use it in the library to kind of get kids excited about books that maybe need a little extra love, maybe aren't circulating as well, have kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. So for me, that I use them to try and promote circulation of books that need a little TLC. And it helps me decide, like, if they still don't check out after a First Chapter Friday, that's a good indicator that they may need to be weeded. Because if I've promoted it and they're still not checking it out, it needs to go, generally. So I see some questions. What does First Chapter Friday mean? So really, it's just reading the story, the first chapter of it. You could do a feature Friday if you're doing it with little guys, where you're just reading the first page, or if it's a really long chapter and you don't want to read that long. I recommend it not going over 5 minutes, just because here, I'm going to need a couple of folks that are, there we go. Is that better? Okay. I would recommend not going over 5 minutes if you can help it. Some of mine have gone over 5 minutes because the chapter was just a little lengthy, and I try to do a full chapter, but and if I think it's worth it, then I will. But if you go much over 5 minutes, you lose your audience. So, kids don't have a really long attention span. They're in the age of TikTok and all the rest of it. And so if you have a really long First Chapter Friday, you're going to lose them. And I've noticed that when I look at my views on my videos, The videos that are shorter have more views. The videos that are really long, it's a lot fewer views. You can see the difference. Another question I see is, where do you store the videos? So that's a really good question. You could do this with a variety of platforms. And in that Padlet that I shared, or not Padlet, I'm sorry, Wakelet, I'm going to drop the link in again for those that recently joined. You could either use Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify or Loom. Our school district uses Loom for a lot of things. So I post that way because my kids have access to those and we have that as a district. You could post them on YouTube if you wanted to. It's really up to you. And I take the links and post them on my library website under a tab that's just for First Chapter Fridays as well. But really just so they're all in one spot. So kids that want to go back and watch other ones, they always can. And I also have a QR code, and on that QR code, like on one of the first tables when you walk in my library, there's a feature of lots of different books of First Chapter Friday, so they could just grab and go. And I've also got the QR code there, so if they want to watch something and see, well, what am I interested in getting? I'm not sure what I want today, then they can watch a couple and decide, and that may guide them as well. So having that QR code is always a good idea too, and just kind of a display to put it to the front of their minds. I see another comment: creating and compiling a list of First Chapter Fridays for my staff and students to use, hoping to promote varied genres and authors. And I think that's a great point too, is not just reading the same types of books over and over again. So I've tried to, for example, in October, I generally focus on spooky books, because I have a lot of kids that are always looking for those. So usually October, every week will be a different scary author or series, just to get them excited about ones they may not have found yet. Because all of them know Goosebumps, and, a lot of them knew American Chillers. And then it's finding those authors that they may not be as familiar with. And that's been really fun for them. Or, if they have a particular sports fiction author that they're really into, like Mike Lupica, well, what are some read-alikes that are going to get them going on some more stories that they may enjoy as well? So it's really just another way to help them find the stuff they actually want to read. Let's see, did I miss any other comments? I think we got them all. If you just jumped in, I know a few joined us a second ago and you haven't introduced yourself, feel free to introduce yourself or unmute and ask questions or chat. This really is very free form. As an ed camp, you guys can share questions. Okay, Lynn says, what do you recommend for older kids when the chapter is too long? That's where I mentioned the feature Friday. I wouldn't necessarily read the whole chapter. I might read a page or two, especially if it's got a great beginning that is going to suck them in without having to read the whole chapter. Just find that good stopping point, and even time yourself reading if you're able, maybe set a timer. And when you hit that, 1 or 2 minute mark and you realize, okay, this is long enough, I'm going to cut it off at about this point. That kind of helps you get a gauge before you record, because if you don't kind of preview that and figure out how long it's going to take you to read it, then it may be really long. That happened to me with the Serafina and the Black Cloak series. Robert Beatty, who's also a North Carolina author, so I wanted to feature him last October during our spooky season, and that chapter was forever long. So these are just lessons that I've learned as I'm going through. And good morning, Lori and Miss Smith. We got elementary libraries in Virginia and Tennessee. Awesome. My neighbors. I'm in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina. So, and again, with little guys, I do think that the book trailer, well, really with anyone, but, just to grab them, that attention grabber, especially the ones from the publisher, sometimes they can be so great because it really is like a little mini film to kind of suck them in. And so I'm a big believer in the book trailers too. And what I've used is super simple. And I believe I may have shared it in my presentation that I linked in the Wakelet. You can just use something as simple as Google Slides or a PowerPoint or Canva. I always have the title of the book on the first slide and a picture of the cover. And then on the second slide, I just have the YouTube link. And then on the third slide, it's just me reading that chapter. And so I literally just make 3 slides, copy paste, and change the background and everything to kind of theme it to whatever the book is about. And then it's like I said, super simple. So I'm just, not reinventing the wheel every week. I see Amy says, our middle school librarian uses a podcast app to read an entire first chapter. And if you're not familiar with podcasting, Anchor is a great app for podcasting if you're not already using that. But you really can use anything to record. I mean, whatever tool you're most comfortable with. I really like Loom because the kids can comment. Oh, I'm sorry, the slide suggestion. I use Google Slides and just do a picture of the cover and the title and author on the first one. And then I have the YouTube video embedded on the second one. And then the third slide is literally just me reading the chapter. Easy peasy. I have done it in Canva, and that may be the other one that you're asking about. I love Canva, but that's kind of the next level up, depending on everyone's level of tech savviness. Canva, you can really make it beautiful. I've added music. I've added animated backgrounds when I've done Canva. You could do a whole presentation just on Canva. In fact, I think I saw several on our EdCamp today, but that's one that you definitely are going to spend a little more time creating it. So it really just depends on the time investment that you have and how detailed you want to go with it. So Canva is one of my favorite tools. I don't work for them or anything, but I think it is just the best, and you can do a lot with it. And really any of these tools, you know, the next step, and especially with those older students, I would say starting in maybe even third grade, have kids create their own first chapter Fridays too. That's a really awesome way to extend the learning and get into those higher levels of blooms where they're creating. You know, you don't want them to just sit and get and be the consumers of digital media, but also creators of digital media. So that's another great way to really have them empowered to share their favorite books and their favorite authors, you know, because when a kid hears it from another kid, they're more likely to get really excited about it and want to maybe read that book themselves, you know. So hearing it from us is great, but hearing it from a kid is even better. And sharing book club meetings. I love that. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Just adding a couple more people. Okay. If you just joined us, you're welcome to drop your information in the chat or unmute and introduce yourself. Really informal. If you have any questions or ideas about First Chapter Fridays, or just need to know what it is, you know, we've already shared a little bit about it, but I'm glad you guys are joining us. And like I said, you know, I've had a lot of different experiences in the elementary realm, but have not ever worked any higher than grade 5. So anybody that has done this with middle or high school and has additional feedback or thoughts, I would love to hear that, because I have a middle schooler and a high schooler myself, and you know, they've done things like Battle of the Books, and so they're avid readers, but I would love to hear about how you guys implement this with older grades. And I will say, speaking of Battle of the Books, that's another great opportunity. I usually start with my Battle of the Books titles because I want kids to get excited about Battle of the Books for the school year. So I promote those because I know I've got multiple copies. Those authors oftentimes have multiple books. And so that's a good way to kind of promote as well. Lynn is asking, when do they watch it? That's a good question. So I share it as many different ways as I can. So I always drop it in their Google Classroom. I always add it to my own website, like I mentioned, and it's usually on Loom. And I email the link to all of my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers every single week. And so they're getting it every which way they can get it. And I leave that up to them, because I know every classroom schedule is different, and I don't take that time in the library because my time is pretty short. So I just encourage them, and I do mention it when they're coming to me in the library, but I don't take the time to watch it during my library class. So you know, I'll tell the teachers, hey, share this with your class if you can, or remind them that they can watch it. And they've got headphones. We're 1-to-1. So they all have devices and headphones, and they can watch it anytime they have a free 5 minutes or so in their classroom. You know, if you get to school early and you just finished breakfast, you got to the classroom before the bell rang, check it out then. Or, you know, if you have a few minutes that you finished early and other kids are still working, really anytime during the day. I try to keep it flexible, because you put too many rules on it and people are like, well, I'm just not going to do it, you know. And if you try to make the teachers do it, you know, teachers forget. Kids are the ones that hold the teachers accountable. So yeah, anyone can have video morning announcements. Yeah, that's another great idea. I do know some friends that I have on the western side of the state that they do it as a part of their morning news. Our morning news, they've asked us to keep it to 5 minutes or less. And so if you have another 5-minute video on top of that, I know a lot of teachers that they've allocated just that small chunk of time for morning news. And so they wouldn't do it with the news. But if that's what would work for your school, absolutely. Wherever you can fit it in. And it doesn't have to be a recorded, produced, fancy video either. So let me just, be clear about that, because First Chapter Friday is just a way to get kids excited. So, you could have a kid read it. You could have another staff member read it. If you're doing it during your morning announcements or something like that, anyone could be that First Chapter Friday person. It doesn't have to be your librarian making videos every time. It really, you could have parents featured. You could have school, like local officials featured, like your superintendent or your principal or something like that. And it doesn't have to be something where you're recording. It could even just be, where in your classroom, if you're a classroom teacher, tell them, just First Chapter Friday is a good opportunity to share with your class just a chapter that you're excited about. Good morning, Laura from Ohio. Absolutely. I'm happy to share. I love First Chapter Friday. I'm really passionate about it, as you can tell. I see that we're getting a request for a sample slide. So I'm going to drop that Wakelet in again for those that joined us a little bit later. So I do have a PDF of a presentation I did for NC SLAMA, which is our state's school librarian organization. And so if you go to that First Chapter Friday slides presentation, I saved it as a PDF from Canva, so you should be able to click all the links and access everything. But in that Wakelet, you can see examples, templates, everything. And so that way you have access to all the resources. And I did share some printables as well for teachers that want to extend the learning. So, just another thought, because sometimes teachers don't want to do one more thing when they're like, well, how is this instructional? How am I going to tie this to my standards? Which we know, reading is a powerful thing, and getting them excited to read, the more they read, the better they're going to read, obviously. But some people want that tied to an activity. And so I did link some things that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers that were free. All of those were free. And it's things that help them kind of write up. And I'm going to share my screen for just a second. Hold on, let me admit this person right here, and then I'll share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
So perfect. Thank you. So on the Wakelet, I'm just going to scroll down a little and walk you guys through a couple of the resources that I shared. And if you guys have resources to share, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll add them to the Wakelet, because the more we have, the better. So that first link is just my website, and it has all of them, but it'll take a second to load with, Zoom and everything. So I'm not going to pull that up right now, but you click this one and it takes you to that website. This is the presentation I was mentioning to you guys. And so I presented this at NC SLAMA just a few weeks ago, actually. And again, because it's got a lot of visuals, it's taken a second to load, but it does have the template, which is just 3 simple Google slides that I use. And then I just record in Loom. So I will, start the recording and using the Loom extension on Google Chrome. If you're familiar with that, I highly recommend getting the extension. It makes it really easy because it just shows, in fact, hold on, I don't know if you can see this because I've got a little box over here. Hold on, let me move this box. So right here, this little cog sort of looking thing that's bluish purple, that is the Loom extension, and it's free. And so I just click that when I'm ready to present, and it allows me to record the whole session. So whatever I want to record for First Chapter Friday, easy peasy. So if you haven't used that, I'm guessing most people have with COVID and everything, but if you haven't, the Loom extension is a really friendly one. I've also used Screencast-O-Matic and Screencastify to record my screen and myself. I encourage you to have your face visible. It has both options where you can record just your screen or record your face and the screen. Kids like to see you. They like you. You have a bond bond in a rapport with them. And so that I think is a powerful tool. So even though I don't love to record myself, I always do. But anyway, so this has all of the resources and links to my contact information. So anything that you have questions about, it should be in the slides presentation. As you scroll down, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. This is a video of another teacher that uses these, and she's got a lot of information on YouTube. So I did link a video that she had introducing First Chapter Friday. And the examples, like I said, that takes you to my website. I will share just a few do's and don'ts, because a lot of this, I think, is just good best practice, but you do it however it works for you. Do incorporate nonfiction. I think that's really powerful, especially if you have an author with multiple nonfiction titles. That can be really powerful. And a lot of our kids love nonfiction, especially at the elementary age. I don't know about the older grades, but I know my kids are obsessed with that nonfiction section. So that kind of gets your readers that may not want to sit and read a, lengthy chapter book that's, a realistic fiction or fantasy or whatever. That's just not their jam. Then, that nonfiction draws them in. A variety of genres, again, and text complexities. I don't always just choose kind of in the same range, because I want kids to be able to get something that's right for them. So, even down to like those scholastic branches level books that are those early chapter books, from that sort of thing all the way up to, your Harry Potters and more complex stories and lengthier texts. All of that has a place in First Chapter Friday, because you want to grab all your readers. And I always tell mine about the digital library options as well. So you've got your audiobooks that if it's a little beyond their reach at that time, that's okay. Check it out anyway and listen along with an audiobook, and you're still getting that great text. I don't want a kid to feel like, oh, this book is too big or too hard for me. I want them to enjoy whatever they're excited about, because kids will work hard for a book they're excited about. Choosing one with multiples, pairing fiction and nonfiction, just because sometimes, for example, you may have a fiction story or historical fiction that ties in a famous person, and then you can pull that biography or that memoir from your nonfiction section and get them reading across genres, which is great. Letting your kids pick the theme, that's a really great thing too, because they will tell you what they want to read, and so that's another great thing that we can incorporate. Like I mentioned earlier, using music, video clips, and themes. So again, Canva is a great way to expand with that. Obviously, featuring diverse characters is really super important. I want every kid in my school to feel represented by the First Chapter Fridays that I'm featuring. So not just focusing on the same types of kids or characters over and over. That's something I'm very intentional about. And even if it's a kid that's not represented in my school, still featuring those diverse characters, because they may encounter those folks in other areas. And I want them to realize that, there's all different types of people in our world, in our community, and that they're all valued and celebrated. Silent book talks is just a fancy word for slides, and you may already be doing that. I have some slides that I just have scrolling near my circulation desk. And so you can put your own little recommendations without even posting a video, just, a picture of the cover and maybe a little quote from the book, like, a quote that's going to be compelling and get them excited about it. A few don'ts. Don't pick your most popular books, because they're already circulating. They don't need your help. Don't be afraid to book talk a book that you haven't read all the way through. And that may be, taboo to some of you, but we don't have time to read every single book, but that book may still be a great one, especially if it's been featured or award winning or something, that is a quality material and you feel comfortable. Feature it and get kids reading it. Don't give away too much, no spoilers, and don't eat or drink on camera. Don't chew gum. That's kind of gross and kids don't like that, things like that. Let me see if there's anything else I'm going to add. You definitely want to include the author, title, genre, your book cover, book trailer if they have it. If they don't, that would be another great thing that kids could do, is have the kids create the book trailers for some of these that, if they've read it, incorporate them into it, because they get really excited about that creation process. Include something interesting about the plot or author without spoilers, and definitely tie into current events or those curricular connections for your classroom teachers, because they want something that they can support, something that they know is going to help them do their job. So if you can connect it to their science or social studies content, that's really great too. So, like someone was asking about the template, which is why I pulled this up to start with, and I just kind of went down a little trail. But if you scan that QR code, it's also clickable. So you can click this to get the template for Google Slides. I'm going to stop that share now because I see some questions in the chat or comments. Let me scroll down and see our things. Oh, I made a TikTok for new titles. Yes, Lynn, I love that. TikTok is awesome. A lot of kids, I mean, that's where kids are, you know, the old people are on Facebook now. Twitter's kind of blowing up. We don't know what's going to happen. But TikTok is where the kids are. So if you want to meet them in their area, that and Instagram are really probably your best bets. Yes, the whole slides presentation is in the Wakelet, Dana. So you'll get everything that's in that. That's on the Wakelet as well. How do you show the pictures or photos when reading nonfiction? Excellent question. So what I do is I actually two ways. I've done it two ways. I've held up the pictures to my screen when I'm showing my face, you know, so I would just hold up the book to my laptop's camera and show the picture that way. Or I have taken pictures and put them in a Google slide if it's one that's got a lot of illustrations. For example, A Nest for Celeste. That one has a lot of illustrations. Another option could be to use the ebook instead of a physical book when you're sharing, because that way you're getting beautiful illustrations that aren't distorted at all from trying to catch a like a camera shot that you've uploaded into a slide or something. Okay, I see Catherine saying I've used Anchor, which is podcast, and visuals are not quite possible. Okay, so, but in Anchor, you do have a place where you can add show notes. That's where you could link your Google Slides, and, you know, just making sure you have it view only where they're not going to be able to edit those slides. You know, if you take that part at the end and delete the last part and make it just where it's presentable and they're not going to be able to copy, then you can add it into your show notes, because I add show notes. I've got a podcast as well. It's called Sorry, I'm All Booked, and it's about all kinds of librarian stuff. So if you haven't checked it out, y'all, I would love to see y'all check that out. And you can see in the show notes, I link lots of resources, because a lot of times you want them to see something that you can't get through audio. So that's a good point. Oh, I see somebody in the waiting room. Let me add them in. And we only have just a short amount of time left. Does anybody have any questions that I have not addressed? I'm trying to scroll back through and see if I've missed anything. Oh, I see Lindsay said, as a high school librarian, I pivoted from first chapter Fridays to book trailers. The first chapter of books was getting to be too long. And I agree, Lindsay, that's where I said, you know, you may not call it a first chapter Friday, you may call it Feature Friday. And as a Feature Friday, it's just read a little snippet to get them excited, you know, just a little taste. For those of you that maybe have done book tastings, I don't know how many of you guys have done that, but sometimes that little taste can be more powerful than the first chapter, because it's just enough to get them wanting more. And then you stop them right at a great part and you're like, you're going to have to come check it out, you know? So that can be another way to accomplish that as well. And again, with the little guys, if you jumped on after we talked about this a little earlier, you know, if you're teaching elementary or pre-K, you know, they're not going to have a lot of stamina for a chapter book sometimes, but just featuring, you know, a picture book even, and featuring, like you said, the book trailer and maybe just a little snippet, enough to get them wanting more. Any other questions or comments or things that you guys have used? And again, I'm going to drop the Wakelet into the chat again for folks that joined us recently. It has all of our resources that I've shared so far. If you have resources to share, I would love for you to drop those links in the chat so I can add them to our Wakelet. I really want this to be a good resource for you guys. And I appreciate all of you guys getting up early on a Saturday morning and joining in for this conversation. Amy, did you have a comment? I see your camera's on, but I don't see you unmuted. Do you want me to unmute?
Yeah, I could do it. No, I actually live in Vietnam, so I'm cruising into bed soon.
Oh yeah, well that's true. I'm thinking Eastern time zone, because
well,
that's
then the majority of
you
are, so you don't need to accommodate me. It's just funny because everyone's just like, oh, it's so early, and I'm like, yeah, no, the day's almost over.
I love that about this EdCamp though. I'm so glad that Christina created this, because we get to see and hear from people all over the place and get different perspectives about how they make things work in their community, which is awesome. So have you tried First Chapter Fridays before?
I haven't. I'm the one who said our middle school librarian has done it. I'm in the high school. But I think I'll try it, and I'll put it, we use Schoology, so I think I'll just do it and post it to there and see, there'll be only 6 kids out of 400 that watch it, but that's fine. Those will be the 6 that need something.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because I have my consistent viewers that always watch it. They comment, they get excited. They're the ones that run down right after they watch it Friday morning and want to check it out at like 8:05 and, first thing in the morning. And then some kids never watch it. And I know they haven't watched it because I can see who viewed it, but they still want to come out and check out my first chapter Friday because somebody else watched it and said, oh my gosh, did you see that? So that word of mouth is a powerful tool too.
Yeah. And I'm happy to just reach the kids who need to be reached.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs their thing, and the library is some people's thing.
Yes, exactly. Lynn, I see, just said has done as a book snap and had the kids make their own. If you're not familiar with book snaps, I love that idea, Lynn. So people that have Bitmojis, like the Snapchat cute little cartoony characters, if you haven't seen a Bitmoji before, they're super cute. They look like the cartoon version of yourself, and you can add your own Bitmoji on there. You can add the cover of the book. You can do just a little blurb about it or a little quote about it. Lynn, I don't know if you want to unmute and share how your schools have or classes have done that, but the kids love it.
So I work with an English class. This was pre-pandemic, but so basically I had seen it at a conference. It was amazing. And I used, she used Snapchat to that's how her kids view it. But we kind of did it like, I believe with the Google Slides, or even Bunsy is a program that I use a lot. So the kids had to pick a quote from the book and then add images that would emphasize and, like to make somebody want to read it. So then they all had the book snap. So I think we did it in Bunsy because then it could be shared like within a class and they could view it all. And they could even rate them like with a thumbs up, thumbs down based on the book. And, this is the books that we do the TC program, and they have to do a lot of independent reading. So this was how to get them to share with each other and encourage other kids to read. So it worked out really well. I haven't done it since then because of the pandemic, and I have.
And just so we get admit these other folks that are adding back on. And while some more people are adding back into the meeting, what's everybody else joining today? Like, what sessions are you guys excited about? Are you guys presenting?
That is the way many people are getting things, by writing grants and showing the need. There's a lot of people out there who do want to help.
Something about grant writing. That sounds good. All right. And for those that just rejoined, there's the Wakelet. Any other questions that we didn't talk about that you're still curious about? How do you do this? Like, I want you guys to feel comfortable that you can go and do this yourself starting right away.
Hi, this is Lori Stansbury. I'm in Tennessee and I'm in an elementary school library. And I just want to say, love your presentation. I can't wait to see your format. But I want to just iterate. Give yourself permission to make mistakes in your video. They don't have to be perfect. The kids see you as human. Have a little fun with it. My dog photobombs some of my videos. I just wanted to see what you do. I've been doing First Chapter Friday, and it is a big success. I've got lots of ideas. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, Lori, because yes, mine are not polished perfect. I definitely flub a little bit here and there. And I mean, you can, within the editing tools of most of these programs, there are things that you can take out if it's just a big mistake. Like, for example, sometimes I'm doing mine right at the end of the school day and the bell will start ringing over me reading. And I do go back in and re-record that section just because you can't hear what I'm saying if there's like a boo over top of it. So, you know, little mistakes, absolutely. The kids like knowing that you're a regular person. But there are some things that I do go in and fix just for listenability, you know, just, and that's another thing. You don't have to have any special equipment. Like, I just use my school laptop. I don't use a special mic or anything. When I'm podcasting, I do use a special mic with a pop filter just to kind of make sure those P's and T's sound good. But really, for our purposes, it's casual. The kids can do this. I've got those little green Flipgrid kind of tents that you can use as a green screen, and they can go in and record their own in the little Flipgrid tent. That's like their little privacy area, so they can focus and not have as much background noise. But so you could have kids create them too, and use the green screen, and they can add their own backgrounds. I mean, you can really do so many different things with it. It's totally up to you how far you want to take it. Any other comments? We're coming close to the end of our time, but I've enjoyed this chat with you guys. And definitely check out the Wakelet. There's lots of resources there. And if you guys have more to add, I would be happy to drop those links in for you. I appreciate everybody joining me. For me, Eastern time zone, you know, early in the morning, whatever time you guys might be joining, I'm glad you're here as well. Lori, if you're in Tennessee, you're probably a little earlier than me even. And again, the whole purpose is just to get kids excited about reading, you know? That's what it's all about. And if we can get even one more kid to read a book they might not have found otherwise, that's time well spent. And just one other thing to remember is, you know, this is reaching a wider audience in 5 minutes than you could, you know, if you had to book talk this book every single class all throughout your week, how much time that would take. This kind of cuts all that extra time out. You're able to reach a lot of people in a short amount of time with this tool. So I really love it. I have 8:40. I'm going to honor you guys' time. So if nobody has any other questions, I really appreciate you joining me. I'm going to stop the recording now.